The morning of January 6, 2026, began with a tremor that shook the global food industry to its very core as Nestle, the world's largest food and beverage conglomerate, issued an emergency bulletin that sent shockwaves through households from London to Hong Kong. This was not a minor logistics error or a simple labeling mistake. It was a massive international recall of infant formula batches triggered by severe food safety concerns that struck at the heart of parental trust. For millions of caregivers who rely on brands like SMA, BEBA, and NAN, the news was a sudden nightmare, forcing an immediate halt to feeding routines as health authorities across Europe and Asia issued urgent, do not consume warnings. The scale of the crisis became apparent within hours as reports surfaced that over 10 factories were involved in the distribution of potentially contaminated products. As the story broke, the focus sharpened on a specific microbial threat that bypassed standard safety protocols, leaving the public demanding answers from a company that has long marketed itself as the gold standard in pediatric nutrition. In this unfolding situation, the global supply chain for infant health faced its most significant test in decades, sparking a frantic race to prevent a public health disaster. At the center of this unprecedented safety crisis is a specific and dangerous contaminant known as cereulide, a potent toxin produced by the bacterium Bacillus cereus, which has been identified in the affected batches of formula. Unlike many common pathogens that are neutralized by heat, cereulide is notoriously heat-stable, meaning that the standard practice of using boiling or hot water to prepare a baby's bottle is completely ineffective at destroying the toxin. This particular characteristic makes the contamination especially hazardous for infants, whose developing digestive and immune systems are highly vulnerable to external threats. If ingested, the toxin acts rapidly on the body, typically triggering symptoms within just a few hours, including intense nausea, violent vomiting, and painful abdominal cramps. Scientists have long warned that Bacillus cereus can thrive in dry environments like powdered milk if the raw ingredients are compromised at the source. By the time Nestle identified the presence of cereulide, the product had already reached store shelves and kitchen cupboards across multiple continents. The realization that a heat-resistant toxin had entered the most sensitive segment of the food chain prompted immediate action from the Austrian Ministry of Health and other regulatory bodies, marking the beginning of a complex scientific investigation into the failure. The geographic and logistical scale of this recall is staggering, covering a vast network of markets and involving hundreds of different product lines across the global Nestle portfolio. While the initial alarm was raised in the Netherlands and Austria, the list of affected countries quickly grew to include the United Kingdom, Ireland, France, Germany, Switzerland, Italy, and the entire Scandinavian region, as well as major hubs in Asia. In the United Kingdom and Ireland, the focus is largely on the SMA brand, a staple in many households, while in France, the Guigoz and Nidal lines are under scrutiny. German and Austrian parents are checking tins of BEBA and Alfamino, while the NAN brand is seeing recalls across several other European markets. The Austrian Ministry of Health has indicated that more than 800 distinct products may be impacted, originating from over 10 different manufacturing facilities worldwide. This massive scope suggests a systemic issue that transcended a single production line, pointing instead to a deeper problem within the ingredients used across various brands. Nestle's logistics teams have been working around the clock to coordinate with international retailers to ensure that every single affected tin is pulled from the shelves. Yet the sheer volume of distributed goods makes this an incredibly difficult task. In the wake of the announcement, investigators and Nestle's internal quality control teams focused their attention on the origin of the contamination, eventually tracing the quality issue back to a specific raw ingredient. The company has identified a supplier of arachidonic acid oil, a critical fatty acid used to enrich infant formula to support brain development, as the likely source of the cereulide toxin. This oil, or the specific oil mixes containing it, was distributed to multiple factories, explaining why so many different brands and regions were affected simultaneously. The failure occurred at the very beginning of the manufacturing process, where the raw materials are vetted for safety before being integrated into the final powder product. For a company of Nestle's size, which prides itself on rigorous supplier audits and stringent safety standards, this breach represents a catastrophic breakdown in the oversight of their global supply chain. The fact that the risk was initially detected at a factory in the Netherlands highlights the interconnected nature of modern food production, where a single contaminated batch of oil can compromise millions of units of finished goods across the globe. This revelation has sparked intense scrutiny of how third-party suppliers are monitored and whether current testing protocols are sufficient to detect heat-stable toxins. Despite the widespread nature of the recall and the high toxicity of the contaminant, there is a small measure of relief in the fact that no confirmed illnesses have been linked to the formula, as of the latest reports. Nestlé has maintained that the recall is a voluntary measure taken out of an abundance of caution to ensure that no child is put at risk. However, medical professionals are on high alert, advising parents to monitor their infants closely for any signs of gastrointestinal distress, particularly sudden vomiting, which is the hallmark of cereulide poisoning. Because the toxin works so quickly, the window for intervention is small, and parents are urged to contact emergency services or their local general practitioner if symptoms appear after feeding. Health agencies like the UK Food Standards Agency and the NHS have issued clear guidelines, emphasizing that even if a tin of formula looks, smells, and tastes normal, it could still contain dangerous levels of the toxin. The primary concern for doctors is the risk of dehydration in infants, which can escalate rapidly if vomiting is frequent. This medical urgency has turned every kitchen into a potential site of concern, as caregivers are told to stop using the suspicious batches immediately and switch to a confirmed safe alternative to protect their children. For parents currently in possession of the affected formula, the path forward involves a series of specific steps designed to ensure safety while facilitating a full refund for the compromised products. Nestlé has instructed consumers in the UK and Ireland not to return the physical tins to the stores, but rather to follow a digital verification process. This involves taking a clear photograph of the product along with the specific batch code and best before date printed on the packaging, which serves as proof of purchase. Parents are then directed to contact the Nestlé Care line or use a dedicated online portal to submit their claim for a refund. The company has publicized dedicated phone numbers for different regions to handle the surge in inquiries, though many parents have reported long wait times as the system struggles to handle the volume of worried callers. In other regions like Germany and France, local retailers are participating in the return process directly, allowing for quicker exchanges. The priority for every household is to verify their batch codes against a master list published on official government and Nestlé websites. This logistical hurdle adds a layer of stress to an already tense situation, as families scramble to find replacement formula during a period of potential shortages caused by the sudden removal of stock. The long-term consequences of this recall on Nestlé's reputation are likely to be profound, as the company faces a significant crisis of confidence among its most loyal consumer base. Infant formula is a product built entirely on trust. Parents must believe that the food they are giving their most vulnerable family members is processed with the highest possible safety standards. A recall of this magnitude, involving a toxin that cannot be neutralized by the consumer, shatters that sense of security. Critics and consumer advocacy groups are already pointing to this event as evidence that global food giants have become too large to effectively monitor their complex networks of international suppliers. Nestlé has spent decades and millions of dollars building the SMA, NAN, and BEBA brands in a household name synonymous with health and science-backed nutrition. Now, those same names are associated with headlines of bacterial toxins and safety failures. The company's response in the coming weeks, how it handles refunds, how transparent it is about the supplier failure, and what new safety measures it implements, will determine whether it can ever fully recover the trust of parents. In the digital age, where news of such failures spreads instantly, the brand's image is under a microscope, and any perceived delay or lack of transparency could be damaging. The 2026 Nestlé recall is not just a corporate failure. It is a significant event for food safety regulators who must now re-examine the laws governing the production of infant nutrition. The Austrian Ministry of Health's proactive stance and the rapid coordination between the European Food Safety Authority and other international bodies demonstrate the importance of cross-border cooperation. However, the fact that such a large amount of contaminated product reached the market suggests that current regulatory frameworks may have loopholes, particularly regarding the testing of raw oil ingredients for heat-stable toxins. There are already calls for mandatory batch testing of every single raw component used in infant formula, rather than relying on spot checks or supplier certifications. Governments may also look into imposing stricter penalties for companies that fail to catch such contaminants before they leave the factory gate. This incident is expected to lead to a new era of preventative transparency, where companies are required to share more data about their supply chains with the public and regulators in real time. As the investigation continues, the findings will likely serve as the basis for new international standards aimed at ensuring that a toxin like cereulide can never again find its way into a baby's bottle through a commercial product. Beyond the immediate safety concerns, a secondary crisis is brewing in the form of a major supply chain disruption for infant formula in the affected regions. Removing hundreds of products from the shelves of thousands of supermarkets and pharmacies creates a massive void that cannot be filled overnight. Competitor brands are seeing a sudden surge in demand as parents switch away from Nestle products, leading to localized shortages and panic buying in some urban centers. Nestle faces the monumental task of not only disposing of millions of units of contaminated formula, but also ramping up production at its safe, unaffected facilities to restock the market. This involves a complex dance of logistics, requiring new shipments of certified safe raw ingredients and the deep cleaning of factories that may have handled the contaminated oil. For many families, especially those whose infants require specialized formulas like Alfamino for allergies, the shortage is more than an inconvenience. It is a direct threat to their child's nutritional needs. Retailers are being urged to implement purchase limits to ensure a fair distribution of remaining stock, while Nestle works to provide clear timelines for when safe batches of their popular brands will return to the market, a process that could take several months to stabilize completely. As the world reflects on the events of January 2026, the Nestle recall serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of our global food systems and the absolute necessity of vigilance. The incident has highlighted the Achilles heel of modern manufacturing, the reliance on a small number of global suppliers for critical ingredients. Moving forward, the industry must prioritize the diversification of supply chains and the implementation of advanced testing technologies, such as rapid DNA sequencing and real-time toxin detection, to catch issues at the molecular level. For parents, the lesson is one of informed caution, staying connected to official health alerts and understanding the batch systems used by manufacturers. While the immediate danger may pass as the recall concludes, the conversation around food safety and corporate accountability is only just beginning. We must demand a system where the safety of the most vulnerable is never compromised by the complexities of global trade. Nestle's journey to rebuild its reputation will be long. But if this crisis leads to more robust international safety standards and better protection for infants everywhere, it may eventually be seen as a turning point for the better. For now, the focus remains on the families affected, ensuring every child remains safe and every parent receives the support they need in this difficult time.